The Alzheimer's patient usually has a primary caregiver, someone who has the stress of relating to the dementia, forgetfulness, and helplessness. Alzheimer's care must be care for the caregiver too. In the practice, the voice of the primary caregiver is speaking, reaching into the inner awareness of the person being cared for. Jung said in 1965, in the last book he published, there's a chapter called Life After Death, and he said that the most astonishing, he used the word astonishing, observation he had had in all his clinical medical career, which was more than 50 years, was in states of coma where the cerebral cortex had been acutely injured in an accident, and there was nothing functioning in the cerebral cortex, or where a brain disease like Alzheimer's disease had brought the brain into a state of virtual collapse. He found a remarkable sense of what he called a persistent sense of subjective consciousness, which he felt was clearly able to perceive externally as well as have profound dream states. He called that sense of the tendency for a continuity in consciousness, even in those conditions, a possible disclosure of awareness after death, and that it could be a real key to the survival of consciousness after death. And then I read a story told by a doctor and had experienced this. And his father had been sick with Alzheimer's for many years, and by the time he was in his late 50s, he had deteriorated so much over a 7-year period that he had stopped talking, he had become silent, he had become vegetative and helpless, and these two sons and the mother would take care of him. And the doctor-to-be was 17 years old when this event happened. And one day they were alone with the father, and they would dress him and sit him in the chair, and he would just sit there. There was something playing on the TV. He was reading a book, and his kid brother was in the room, when suddenly they heard a crash, and their father had fallen heavily onto the floor and smacked his head on the floor, and they looked, and he was absolutely ashen gray. The color of his face looked just shocking. And the older brother said to the younger, call 911. And a voice they hadn't heard in 7 years spoke with perfect clarity and said, don't call 911, son. I'm really well. Tell your mother that I'm fine. And he died. And the doctor was absolutely haunted. They did an autopsy, and the brain was necrotic. There was nothing there that you could say this happened. Where did that intelligence come from? This fundamental awareness that is unobstructed in us, primal awareness, is untouched. Fascinated with Jung's sense of this undying primordial awareness that's in there, and the sense that it persisted in Alzheimer's patients, I created a text for Alzheimer's patients. The whole point of this caregiving work for Alzheimer's that I created with a sound guide to reach the inner awareness of the person in Alzheimer was for the healing as well or as much of the primary caregiver. There's so much talk about the stress on the caregivers in these situations. So the language of the text of this called Alzheimer's Care is really the caregiver talking to the person with Alzheimer's disease, trying to reach their inner awareness. And I'll read you the first part of that. So this was a cassette played in the room as often as possible. And so we sit here, quietly, breathing. Let's breathe together. Let's be quiet together. Let's feel the energy in the inner quiet. Let's learn peace. Let's breathe together. Let's have this quiet. Let's learn peace. Teach me to communicate with you in a new way. Teach me to find your wisdom inside. Teach me to find the inner way. Look at me from your inner mind. Communicate telepathically. Let me hear you without listening. Let me know you without thinking. Let me see you without looking. I'm letting you reach me from deep inside you. Reach me from the life you can't express. Teach me to be telepathic. Teach me to hear what you can't say. Let me feel your inner awareness. See me with new eyes. Let's see the light in our flesh. Let's see the light in our minds. Teach me without words how awareness is free. Then let me communicate with you with words. I pray we both know the sacredness of life. I'm Robert Bruce Newman. For more information about my work and my books, please visit medigrace.org and calmbirth.org.